Hi everyone, this is Paul here for the Magazine Centre. Today I'm doing the weekly report for the Astrology for the 29th of November. So we start with, in terms of the aspects for this week, starting off with the moon, we begin with the moon in Aries. This is a time of taking action, feeling motivation for aim towards our goals and setting the intentions that we want to achieve. Then on Thursday, the moon moves into Taurus. This is a time of slowing down, of getting in touch, of feeling grounded again. So we may feel the need to spend a bit of time in nature to relax and reacquaint ourselves with the natural rhythms around us through just spending a bit of time in nature, relaxing, getting grounded again. Then on Saturday, the moon moves into Gemini, and this is a time where we may feel that need for researching the goals, or looking or trying to widen our perspectives and looking for new information to do with our goals through research, and then communicating that with other people. We also have the full moon on Sunday in Gemini, so this will be a key point where we get to reflect on the balance we strike between Gemini and Sagittarius, and also look back at how the goals we set at the new moon in Gemini have manifested. But I'll do another whole video on this because that's a whole topic in itself. Then on Monday, the moon moves into Cancer, and this being her home sign, she's very at home here. This is a time where we may feel that need for emotional nourishment, of getting in touch with our inner landscape, exploring our dreams, exploring our intuitions, exploring our feelings, in order to connect with the core of who we are and release or experience that emotional nourishment that comes from feeling connected with our core self. Now, in terms of aspects, one of the most important ones is Mercury turns retrograde on the 3rd of December. We're already in the shadow period of Mercury retrograde as it is, but on the 3rd of December, Mercury turns retrograde proper in Sagittarius. I will remain in retrograde until the 23rd of December. This particular retrograde is all within the sign of Sagittarius. There's not going to be any crossover signs like there was in the past few. This is the first one that's entirely within a fire sign. So again, there'll be a dedicated video on this, but basically Sagittarius is the sign opposite one of the ones that Mercury rules, i.e. Gemini. So Mercury generally deals with the fine details, the individual little bit. So in terms of painting, if you like, Mercury's the fine brush. Sagittarius on the other hand is the broad brush. It creates a big picture which Mercury then adds fine detail to. So Mercury isn't in his strongest sign here, so this is a time where it may create that, or give that creative tension necessary for us to broaden our perceptions as it is, and try to look at the big picture and expand our intellect in order to connect with this bigger picture. But with the retrograde period, this is also a time where we need to take that inward journey to connect with or understand our own personal beliefs, and to understand what is our personal sense of ethics and morals, because there's the morals and ethics that are handed down to us by society, but every single one of us has our own innate sense of ethics and morals, and this may be a period where we need to slow down and understand what our own personal moral compass is, what direction it is guiding us to, and if we've strayed from this path. So it's a time of expanding up, using the retrograde to look at the big picture, to understand what our ordinary day-to-day lives are accomplishing in relation to the big picture. And it may also be a time when we need to start looking to think big. There's a large sea change on the way for us. I mean, from next year, there'll be almost, barring brief periods where the sun and some of the personal planets move through air signs, we're going to have very little air energy to work with in terms of planets moving through and emphasising them. At the moment, one of the only signs, with Mars being in Libra at the moment, once he's moved out, the only thing in an air sign will be the South Node in Aquarius. So the mental energies that form part of the four elements that unite together to create the whole will not be particularly emphasised. So we'll need to work on this. So Mercury in Sagittarius is thinking, but thinking of the big picture and understanding where we fit into things and where we may need to change in order the day-to-day things or day-to-day actions in order to align it with this higher vision, this higher purpose that each one of us has, and to use it to know ourselves, use it to take that inward journey into the mind to understand what do we believe in, how do we see ourselves fitting into the wider picture, who are we in relation to the cosmos, and how can we expand our minds to see things from a higher perspective so we can see more of the picture than where we are at our current level of consciousness or current level of awareness. This is a time where we do need to slow down and get in touch with that intuitive side of us that sees the big picture, connects all the individual facts into a collective whole so that we can see or understand things better and understand where different things fit in with life and realise that everything's connected, nothing is truly separate. So that's the Mercury retrograde. We also have the beginnings of a sextile between Jupiter and Pluto. Now this aspect here, we had the square at the beginning of 2017, now we've got the sextile. So the same themes will effectively take place, but it's a slightly easier aspect to work with in the sense it's not the conflict of a square, but we do still need to take the opportunity when it happens to bring the energies of Pluto and Jupiter together. Jupiter happens to be in Pluto's sign of Scorpio anyway, so this is a time where Jupiter is really emphasising the Plutonian work of taking that inward journey to the core of who we are, to explore the deepest recesses of the mind, and to acknowledge our emotional underpinnings, our emotional needs, and understanding our deepest fears and challenging them. So whatever our fears we may have, especially around things like survival, around the execution of power, and sometimes it may actually be the fear of utilising our power, connecting with that power and using it. So some of us may have an aversion to that power and try and keep playing small by not owning that power. And Jupiter in Scorpio is basically the repression mechanism of the mind. Becomes a bit defective in Scorpio. It still can repress things, but not very well, which is why the emotional charges of past events may come up and be more easily triggered by events happening now which partially mirror past experience. And with Jupiter in sextile to Pluto, Pluto brings the awareness of our own shadow to us, is an unflinching truth of who we really are, of the deepest aspects of who we are, and our true relationship with power. And with Jupiter and Pluto coming together, this is a time where we may experience our shadow being particularly emphasised. Now, this aspect is going to be long lasting. It's not going to finish until almost June of next year, because Jupiter will go past the exact point of the sextile with Pluto and then come back over that point, briefly separating from Pluto for a month or so before turning direct and heading back over that sextile point with Pluto before moving on into Sagittarius next year. So during the next few months we may find Jupiter's expansive energies really highlighting unconscious wounds, highlighting our relationship with power and how we wield it, and challenging us to break out of the personal use of power, break out of the need to exercise power for personal gain, and learn to utilise power wisely so that we're not trying to control other people, we don't equate power with control over others. We respect that every single one of us is a soul in our own right. Every single one of us has free will and it's important that we do not violate the free will of anyone. We can help people out, but if we try to control other people, we're violating free will, and this can come with quite significant consequences to it, because we may experience a backlash towards us, which we may not understand it, but if our sense of power is based on controlling other people rather than it being an internal source of power which drives everything, then we may well experience conflicts this time, whereby we're trying to expand ourselves through our relationship with power, but this power needs to be wielded wisely. It needs to have a transpersonal aim. So by this I mean it's not just there in the service of the personal ego. It's there we utilise that power to empower ourselves, but engage in mutual empowerment as well. So we help other people in a way that empowers that person to help themselves. So it's learning to help others to help themselves, rather than just helping that person without showing them how they can do the work themselves. So it's the whole analogy of give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. This is a time where we need to empower ourselves first through freeing ourselves from the clutches of unconscious attachments, emotional patterns which are no longer relevant, and old thought patterns which they may be obsessive, but we need to release them because they undermine our self-worth and undermine the way we exercise our power, to the point where we feel driven to try and control the world around us rather than recognising that the power is within us. And by engaging in self-mastery through mastering our internal responses to external events, we reclaim our power from external events, and by doing that we can then utilise power wisely to help other people and show them how to achieve the same degree of emotional freedom through self-mastery. So we'll also have Venus is going to be moving into Sagittarius at the beginning of December. So she's been in Scorpio for the past few weeks, and this has been looking at that need for authenticity in our relationships, of that deep love which can only come through facing and releasing shadow, of becoming true to who we are and being honest to the people in our relationships of who we are. We're not wearing masks, we're not trying to pretend to be something that we're not in order to develop a connection with people. We are who we are. With Venus moving into Sagittarius, we may feel a sense of values may be more aligned with valuing personal freedom and valuing expansive relationships which promote the expanding of the mind, expanding horizons. So this may be time when we may value things like long distance travel, or anything which pushes the boundaries of our mind further and allows us to see or achieve freedom within our relationships. This doesn't mean that we just cut ties with the people we're in relationships with, but we may feel need to look at how we can achieve greater freedom and more expansive perception, and also look at the beliefs within our relationships to see or bring a union of the minds, so that we recognise the commonality and where we have shared beliefs with people in our relationships, whether that be romantic relationships, friendships, business. It's about looking at the big picture and seeing how we can potentially achieve a greater sense of meaning in our relationships through understanding our beliefs, both ours and the other person's, and seeing how we can expand our perceptions and achieve greater freedom and spontaneity in our relationships, and also a greater benevolence and sense of grace within the relationships. So it's learning to appreciate the person, achieve that sense of unity whilst respecting the other person for who they are, and having that sense of unity and connection with the other person without trying to push them to believe one thing or another. We just embrace them for who they are, and ideally they do the same for us, so they accept us for who we are, They don't try to get us to conform with their sense of beliefs. Both parties are free to be who they are and respect one another in the relationship. So it's quite a bit there, but I hope it's useful guide for what to expect during this week. But it's a time of really looking for, especially with the full moon, finding that balance between what we personally think and believe and shared beliefs, and also finding that balance between the microcosm and the macrocosm, so we appreciate where the small details at the day-to-day level mirror the grand picture, because everything is interrelated, everything is interconnected, and everything mirrors one another. So the more we try and see the underlying patterns behind things, the more we realise that those patterns drive everything around us. And if we can understand the patterns, it then allows us to achieve a broader degree of understanding with new topics, because we realise the commonality between that topic and something that we've already know about. But we don't become bigoted or judgmental about any new information. We don't dismiss things out of hand. We have that openness of mind, that willingness to expand our perceptions, expand our minds to achieve a greater view of the whole, and to, as a result, develop greater sense of unity and benevolence and beneficence towards other people, and achieve a greater spirit of generosity rather than fear and suspicion, which unfortunately is what we're seeing around us at the moment. But we all have that. We all have the choice to make between clinging to old beliefs and being suspicious of anyone who challenges them, or being open-minded enough to hear what other people have to say and break down any barriers that limiting beliefs have between two different people in order to acknowledge our common humanity. So I hope it's a useful guide for the week, making you a lot of learning, a lot of expansion in your life, and a much greater awareness of who you are in relation to the big picture, as well as healing any limiting beliefs through letting them go. So I hope it's a useful guide for the week. May you get many blessings from it.